My name is Spencer Walsh, and on today's Newsflash, an Easter attack has left over 207 to be precise, dead in Sri Lanka. We'll give you the latest details on that. Also, new article by Mehdi Hassan says Democrats, Mueller just handed you a roadmap for impeachment. Follow it. Well, we'll take a look at some people who certainly seem to be doing so. Jerry Nadler, for one, on the Sunday shows today. Robert Mueller, also, he did obliterate the Russia conspiracy theories that were permeating politics. At this time, we'll take a look at Glenn Greenwald's interesting look into that. Also, Steny Hoyer's primary, the FBI leader has arrested a New Mexico militia. FBI has arrested leader of a New Mexico militia. And Joe Biden thinks it's going to be easy to beat Bernie Sanders, guys. We're going to take a look at that. Those are all going to be some stories today. But first, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if you knew this. Well, everything that happens always seems to have a theme, right? And what I like to do, and what I think we're going to start doing here on the show, is try and tie each kind of major news story into a little bit of kind of a main idea, right? So what was going on, how to sum up the news of this week. But before we do that, we just really have to tell you about something very, very important that just happened, which is a series of explosions rippling through the island nation of Sri Lanka on Easter Sunday, killing 207 people and injuring at least 450 in the worst terrorist attack since a lengthy civil war ended a decade ago. Just awful, awful stuff. 8 bombs exploded, several of them detonated by suicide bombers at luxury hotels, churches, and other locations. In response by police and security forces, 8 people were arrested and 3 police officers were killed, according to Reuters and the BBC. Many foreign nationals were among the victims, including several from the U.S., according to USA Today, citing U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. In a statement, Pompeo said the United States condemns in the strongest terms the terror attacks on Sri Lanka on Easter morning. Attacks on innocent people gathering in a place of worship or enjoying a holiday meal are affronts to universal values and freedoms we hold dear and demonstrate yet again the brutal nature of radical terrorists whose sole aim it is to threaten peace and security. And I mean, honestly, I know I certainly have my issues with Mike Pompeo and how he's conducted himself and some of his beliefs, but I'm obviously I think we can all obviously come around on this. It's a really awful thing to see, and just really another reminder of how bad this world is. I mean, luckily things seem to have been under control a little bit since this morning, but as I'm recording this on the Sunday, the same Sunday that this attack occurred, but we are... obviously hoping to find out more and hopefully bring this organization or whoever perpetrated this awful crime to justice. All right. Yeah. So I just wanted to quickly let you know about this because we don't really know too much about what the motives behind these attacks were because it just happened very recently. Obviously, people are still getting to the bottom of it. But we're not going to dwell on it too long. But first, let's just say, before we start anything, just want to give all thoughts, all prayers to the people suffering in Sri Lanka. Just awful, awful thing, especially on Easter. By the way, guys, happy Easter. Thank you so much for listening on this Easter Sunday. All right. Yeah, now to the news of the day. And I said before, we were trying to sum all the news up in one big bow, right? That can sometimes be hard to do. But the theme of the news this week, the big thing, the thing we're taking away is we're getting answers now, folks. We are reaching conclusions. Finally, conclusions are coming down from the mountaintop. But conclusions, as always, seem to bring more questions. All right, yeah, that's our big theme today. Conclusions, but still somehow more questions. Yeah. We're starting off today with this article from Mehdi Hassan. And he says, "Dear House Democrats, you told us to be patient, you told us to be cautious, you told us to wait for Robert Mueller. Well, the time for waiting is over, and the moment for impeachment hearings has arrived. Forget the mendacious Attorney General William Barr and his repeated and repeatedly dishonest attempts to summarize and spin the special counsel's report prior to publication." So for example, obviously we have multiple multiple instances of Barr, both working to cover up things like Iran-Contra back in the 1980s, and this report suggesting things about this report to do with Trump's criminality on obstruction charges. He really misrepresented it, and he's misrepresenting him again. And yeah, this has not been a good couple of days for William Barr. As we now know, you have access to the report yourself. We all do. And even the lightly redacted 448 pages provide you with a clear and detailed roadmap for impeaching Donald Trump, Mehdi Hasan writes, in line with Article 2, Section 4 of the U.S. Constitution. The President, Vice President, and all civil officers from the United States shall be removed from office on impeachment for and conviction of treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. So high crimes and misdemeanors, we don't know, or we do know, this is probably never going to get approved in a Republican Senate as it currently stands, with Mitch McConnell leading the charge there. But it is important, and I mean, I think I definitely have to buy in. I don't know about you guys. I think this is definitely a issue that reasonable people can disagree on, at least for now. I mean, I think, but I think it's going to be very interesting to see, A, where the Democrats go on this, and B, the case that they roll out. And I think it's far more important. I don't think, like, the question, if there is legitimate reasons, sure, I think it's okay to go ahead with impeachment. And I would be actually interested to find out what Mehdi Hasan has to say here. But I think the big thing worth taking away is, as we get more answers, we got answers, 448 pages worth of answers, about Robert Mueller and his findings on Trump and his Russian interference racket he's got going on. But we now have some more questions and answers. Like, what do we do about this? Are we going to impeach him? How do you move from here? And that has to be something that the Democrats are going to have to decide. And if I had to say anything, my piping up from the table of Democratic conversation here, if we're all around one Democratic table, like leftist people, I would say we should not put Trump's impeachment ahead of the broader movement. Well, what that means is, I really think we have to get the country behind it in this scenario. And I mean, sure, I don't know what you guys think. It's definitely something that could be up for debate, but we cannot, in my opinion, go forward with this if without laying out A, a severe or a really clear case, and B, make sure that we have the support of the country. Like, it's very, very important. Trump's approval ratings, I think they've hit their lowest point, but I don't think that's enough. I think we really have to see that there has to be laid out, put forth very clearly reasons for impeachment, and the country, I think, has to be convinced with them, because it's not going to be the whole country, but if you have 55+% on board, then I think it's, and the reasons are just, the reasons are valid, which I think 55% wouldn't be on board if they weren't valid or just. I think there's no choice but to go ahead with it. So those two things, you need public support and valid reasons, and I think one will come with the other to go ahead with this. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see what Mehdi Hasan has to say here. So listen to Special Counsel Robert Mueller, who writes, with respect to whether the president can be found to have obstructed justice by exercising his powers under Article 2 of the Constitution, we concluded that Congress has the authority to prohibit a president's corrupt use of his authority in order to protect the integrity of the administration of justice. He writes, adding the conclusion that Congress may apply the obstruction laws to the president's corrupt exercise of powers of office accords with our constitutional system of checks and balances and the principle that no person is above the law. So pretty much what he's saying here is the special counsel who listed 11 instances of potential obstruction of justice in his report and refused to, quote-unquote, exonerate the president, placed the decision firmly in your court. Talking about Congress here, Mehdi Hasan's writing. This is the impeachment referral you've been waiting for. So saying the conclusion that Congress may apply the obstruction laws to the president's corrupt exercises a corrupt exercise of powers of office accords with our constitutional system of checks and balances and the principle that no person is above the law. So we concluded that Congress has the authority to prohibit president's corrupt use of his authority to in order to protect the integrity of the administration of justice. So he's saying Congress needs to decide this now. The ball is in your court. And that's what he's saying here. I think that's a pretty compelling and convincing case. At least they have to go through, they have to decide, they have to build up their case, And should he be impeached for obstruction of justice in the way that Nixon was? And we've seen a lot of back and forth about this, and I think there's definitely a case here. Trump, in Mueller's view, may have not committed an underlying crime in relation to Russian interference in the 2016 election, and I think really, in my view, too, because there's just I tend to go with Mueller on this one, but I think it'd be very interesting to see the results of the billions of other investigations that he has going on at Trump University, Trump ties to Deutsche Bank and whatever, money laundering, whatever he had to do. I would be very interested to personally see the results of those investigations. And how that could possibly tie into the obstruction of justice investigation, and how that could maybe kind of make a more cohesive case against the president. But I think we get much better evidence of a possibility or chance of finding an underlying crime there. But yeah, in Mueller's view, in this case, he didn't commit an underlying crime. But that's, Mehdi Hasan writes, is frankly irrelevant to the case of impeachment. Listen to one of the 13 managers sent from your august body to prosecute the case against Bill Clinton in the Senate in 1999. You don't even have to be convicted of a crime to lose your job as president in this constitutional republic if this body determines your conduct as a public official is clearly out of bounds in your role, said then Republican Representative and now Senator Lindsey Graham. The process of impeachment, he argued, is about restoring honor and integrity to the office. That is very, very important. And I think it'd be so crucial to really use those words. And I think it'd be very critical. I think this is something that the media should do, Democratic politicians should do, is use people like Lindsey Graham's words against them to really just show you the blatant contradictions going on. I mean, I don't know how effective that would be because, hypocrisy just doesn't matter in our politics anymore, but it's definitely a start. It's a common defense that should be used, but it is a good defense. But I really wonder how much effect it's going to have. I'm really conflicted about it, but yeah, that's if you want any kind of strategy, that's a good one. There put forward by Mehdi Hasan, citing the people who are in the Congress today, what they were saying back in 1999 during the Mueller Report, and there are a bunch of records from those people who are still characters today. Yeah, he writes, listen to your Republican and Democratic predecessors who served on the House Judiciary Committee in 1974 and published 3 articles of impeachment against President Richard Nixon. The first article focused on obstruction of justice and cited the president's false or misleading public statements for the purpose of deceiving the people of the United States. It also cited Nixon's efforts to prospective defendants and individuals duly tried and convicted and expect favored treatment in consideration in return for the silence or false testimony, or rewarding individuals for their silence or false testimony. So yeah, that's pretty much obstructing justice, tampering with witnesses, etc., etc., etc. We've seen in the Mueller Report there's evidence that Trump told Manafort, or Trump's lawyer told Manafort he would be quote unquote taken care of if he obviously stayed in Trump's good graces. It's very. I'm drawing parallels to Trump here as I am reading this. And again, of course, the false or misleading public statements for the purpose of deceiving the people of the United States. That one can be highlighted quite many times. Yeah, he lied about Russian interference in the 2016 election. He lied about the campaign's contacts with the Russians. He lied about the covering up of the campaign's contacts with the Russians. Take the infamous Trump Tower meeting, the statement that President Trump personally dictated on behalf of his son, Donald Trump Jr., who claimed that the latter and a Russian lawyer had met in Trump's tower to primarily discuss a program about the adoption of Russian children. Here is what Mueller says, however, about the purpose of that meeting. Quote, the campaign anticipated receiving information from Russia that could assist the candidate Trump's electoral prospects, but the Russian lawyer's presentation did not provide such information. So yeah, in other words, they wanted dirt. They did not want any information about adoptions. It's just that simple. They did not want that. Yeah, so in other words, it's a lie. It's a complete lie. Yeah, so saying, quote, I also defy you, any of you, to read this special counsel, so he's writing an open letter to House Democrats here, I defy you to any of you to read the special counsel's report and conclude the president did not try and offer favored treatment and rewards to witnesses and defendants of the Russian investigation. The president's acts, a la Nixon. Many of the president's acts directed at witnesses, including discouragement of cooperation with the government and suggestions of possible future